City Manager.
Okay, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Several items to talk about. The first one is actually listed on the agenda. I would like for the Director of Management and Budget to come and give a brief overview of the budget update for fiscal 18.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Eddie Houlihan with the Office of Management and Budget. This is information you received in a packet a couple of weeks ago. I just want to go over some of the highlights. The first page here is general fund revenues, and I'm going to mainly go off of the third column here from the left, the variance column of the year to date. It's for the 5 months ended February 28th. The first item, second item there, sales tax continues to do well. We're about $1 million over our budgeted numbers. We'll get another monthly number here in a couple days, but that's still continuing to trend well. The next line item, other taxes. That's something we've discussed before. That's down almost solely due to industrial district in lieu of taxes is off this year. Continuing on down the page there, about 2/3 of the way down is public safety services, which in the variance column about $1.3 million down. There's some good news in this category. In the police area, the towing and storage is up. We just last couple of days received the word that the tows are up over 600, which is kind of in line with last year. In addition to that, the auction revenue, we received almost $100,000 the last auction that we had here a few days ago, and that's also up. We budget $925,000 in the auction area. We had a new auctioneer, and things are starting to really pick up in that area. I'm going to go to the next page, which is expenditures. Not a whole lot to highlight here. As is typical, 5 months into the year, most areas are under. You would expect to have expended about 42% of your budget, and most areas are under. Again, about 2/3 of the way down is solid waste services. In the variance column, it's a variance of a 548 negative, and that's mostly due to hurricane expenditures that we've had, and we've turned in reimbursement for that, and we would expect to get reimbursed for 75% of those charges at some point. A little further down, almost at the bottom, is another large negative number in the operating transfers out of $1,521,000. That's just a timing issue. We transferred money to the residential street fund of $2.9 million. That was all done in early in the year, and we had budgeted for it to be done throughout the year in 12 equal installments. So that's going to even out as time goes on. So that's not a concern. The next page is the major fund groups. We've already talked a little bit about general fund. The next area there is enterprise fund, which is where all the utilities are located. Again, in that variance column, the third column from the right, far right. Revenue in this group of funds is about $8.3 million down, and that's almost solely in the areas of water, wastewater, and gas. In the gas area, we did have a cold winter, so gas sales are actually up, but that's strictly due to the cost of natural gas is down. We have a corresponding decrease in the expenditures, and the cost of the gas is just a pass through the customer. We buy the gas and we sell it to the customer, and we charge them for the cost of gas. So the cost of natural gas is less than what was budgeted. In the water area, we expect for that to increase and be at or near budgeted levels. And the same thing in wastewater. Now remember that we changed the methodology on billing wastewater customers from a winter average to a monthly water usage rate. So we expect those wastewater revenues to pick up, and we get into the summer months when the water usage is heavy. The next line item down is internal service funds that contain all those funds that perform services for other city functions, mainly fleet, engineering, facilities. Revenue's a little down. A couple of million that is in the engineering area, which we just need to book our revenues where we charge the the projects that are underway for the engineering services performed. Another area that is a little down, and actually not a bad thing, in the City Care Health Fund. Remember, we added another plan in City Care Health. We have the value plan and the choice. The choice plan is a plan that we previously had. We continue that, and we budgeted about 50%. 50%. In actuality, quite a few people moved over to the value plan. It's much less expensive. The benefits aren't quite as rich, but folks couldn't afford the choice plan, and they moved to the value plan. So the revenues are less because it's less benefits, but we also have we're way under in our expenditure side of this fund also. In the expenditure side, 11.9 million in this group of funds, less than what you would expect. A lot of that is in fleet, where a lot of the equipment is purchased in the latter 6 or 7 months of this year. So we expect for those expenditures to increase as time goes by. Debt service funds is almost all of these funds. We're transferring money in from an enterprise fund. We're turning around and paying the debt. So any variance there is just due to timing of debt payment. So that should come in at or near budget. The last group of funds is special revenue funds. The revenue is up a lot, $1.4 million of that of the 3.44 or almost $3.5 million revenues over budgeted amounts. A lot of that is in the hot fund, about $1.4 million of that through the first 5 months of the year. Development services, permitting revenue is up, so that's another area that's up in revenues. Significant under expended in expenditures of over $23 million. 10.8 million of that in the streets. We expect for that work to pick up. However, in the street fund, there is $10 million encumbered, so a lot of it just hasn't been expended, but there are contracts to do street work. The business and job development that pays out quite a bit of large and small business incentive. Those incentives have not been paid out, but we have over $7 million encumbered in that area. And also in the seawall fund, we have $4 million in seawall CIP projects budgeted. We don't transfer the money to the capital fund until we're ready to do the work, so that number is under expended, but we would expect in the latter part of the year to be transferring money and starting these projects. That's about all I have. Try to answer any questions that you might have.
Anyone have any questions? A lot of numbers there. Ms. Opal?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Julian, when I look at the sales tax number, it seems like we feel like we want to celebrate because we're seeing a positive trend. I'm just concerned about when we expect that to abate, because based on what I'm hearing on national trends and the retailers like Amazon and those folks taking sales tax dollars out of communities, what I'm hearing is that right now we're pretty much riding on, that's the positive benefit of Harvey. We're still having a lot of folks coming into our community, and hotel occupancy tax are up. They're maybe eating out at restaurants or doing some kinds of things. Are you looking at that longer term view of what might happen to our sales tax this time next year? Because I find it hard to believe, based on what we were looking at this time last year,
Right.
that that's going to continue.
Yes, I mean I think we've previously talked about, we budgeted about $54 million in the general fund in sales tax. We would expect to get 56 or maybe a little more, but in fiscal year 19, I think the number is going to go down. So currently, it changes a little every month. As you get more data in, you get a little more confidence in the numbers. I would expect that number to be down. I have a $500,000 down at this point for 19, but we'll continue to monitor the numbers as they come in monthly.
So I guess this would be more of a strategic or policy question. So since this is unanticipated revenue that's coming in during this budget year, would we want to take half of that and sock it away so we didn't spend it? Or, I'm also looking at the commensurate collection of property taxes, and that's down, and so I'm not sure if that's people who are not, that they would have paid their property tax by this time, but they didn't pay it, or where that, because those two numbers really are the ones that kind of impact us on the general fund side. So I just don't know if we need to set that money aside so that it doesn't just get used up in this year's budget, but can we sort of accrue that money to offset some revenues next year, because we didn't anticipate these revenues?
I think that if you would allow us to just continue to monitor, and we will be having these meetings. We are going to be sharing this information monthly with you, and probably as we get closer to the end of the fiscal, we'll make sure that we have this conversation so that this staff can provide some recommendations for further consideration.
Let me just say this another way. When it comes to the sales tax, I think we need to live within the budgeted number and not spend whatever comes in over that budgeted number. I mean, that's just, if we didn't have it, we wouldn't be spending it. And we know what we're going into next year. So I'm not sure what action it takes on this council, but there's money that's out there that we did not put in last year's budget.
The reason why we need to monitor this, the sales tax in the general fund is one of the revenue sources that's considered. But if some of the other revenue sources do not meet their levels, we will more than likely need those revenues to help balance it out.
And you just hit the nail on the head. Because if we did not have these revenues, we would be dealing with those expenses in a different way. So what I want is not to spend this additional sales tax money just on these other expenses, because then it's taken care of and we don't know it's there. We would not have had these revenues if we had budgeted to the number that we anticipated was coming. And I think as a council, right now, this is one of those right now actions that we need to take, that we do not spend money that it would have to come to this council to allow the council to release those funds to be used for any other activity, including shortfalls in the healthcare fund or other revenues that don't come in. Because, it was made very plain today, there's some expectations from the community of this council. And so money that isn't sort of tracked very deliberatively has a tendency to get spent. I mean, there's not a bad intent there, it just will. And this is revenue that the city council did not expect, and I think the city council should embargo those funds and should deliberatively distribute them rather than just kind of balance them out. If the fund goes down, then that number goes down. But we need to be the ones, in my opinion, I'm not sure how the rest of the council feels, but I always wondered where the $11 million in sales tax increase due to Eagleford Shale went. And I don't think there are some council members who I think may have known that, but this is an opportunity, I think, that we don't lose track of $1 million. So that's just my opinion.
On the property tax, it's I'll flip back to that page here. It's $1.8 million under through February, but in March we made up about 80% of that. It was just over 3-year average. You would expect to receive about 95% through February. We received about 93.5. I think just a few folks paid late because it came back up in March.
You may have been around as Mary Pat Slavic, a former council member, said, $1 million here, $1 million there. Pretty soon you get to real money.
Anybody else? All right, any other observations you have?
I don't think I have anything. What the city manager mentioned, that we would, at this point, we expect to be a couple million short in revenues in general fund. But the sales tax, but the industrial in lieu of is down. There's a few areas in public safety that are down. Hopefully that improves, but at this point in time, we think we'll probably be a couple million short. Now we've done some things already on the expenditure side, freezing some areas that we're gonna make that up.
And when we have the budget workshop later this month, we will share with you some of the different areas that's underway right now in terms of making sure that we cut back in a lot of different areas.
Well, I don't see that. Two things, just comment, and you don't have to give a response today, but as part of your budget planning, over the weekend we got the memo from the Parks and Recreation Board about their commitment to doing what needs to be done to be self-sufficient, get off the general fund, which I appreciate their enthusiasm. Trying to find $11 million is going to be a challenge, but what I'd like to do is to get a response maybe back to them, ask them what their plan is to find that $11 million to get them off of the general fund. And then today, the lady that spoke on the library talked about the value that we have at the library, which to me indicates that our rates or what we charge, if we charge anything, are way under market value for the benefit being received by the patrons. And if we plug in those kind of rates to produce the revenue that she's saying based on some study that she had value there, I mean, we're gonna be out of the subsidizing the library from the general fund also, and what it would take to implement the rate structure that she was talking about to get there. So I mean, the values she threw out there today were pretty impressive, which indicated our rates are either way below market, or there's just not any rates for services that we're providing. And if that's the direction that they want to go with the library, I applaud them, but we need to see what the impact is. And so if you can kind of put that into the mix next time, so that, you know, I'm not sure people, and this is what I want to be concerned about is, you know, somebody goes to swim laps at Collier Pool, I don't want to be charged $25 a lap, you know, that kind of deal. But I mean, we're talking some big money, but there's also some enthusiasm for the public, and this is what we said at the State of the City, help us solve this problem. And if we put the burden on the services that are being received, then let's see what those numbers really are, and see what the public support is there. So that's all I've got. Anything else? All right, Ms. Rose, does that finish your city manager's report?
Oh, no.
No? Oh.
No.
Oh,
Thank
you just
you.
listed one thing to get our appetite. Okay, here you
Okay.
go.
Thank you, Mr. Houlihan. Some of the other items, Council, is I always like to give you a recap of what transpired the month before as it relates to you adhering to your council goals. During the month of March, there was a tremendous amount of activity from you in two of the three areas. One is in streets and the other in economic development. In streets, you did pass a resolution for notice of intent to issue certificate of obligations for streets and facility improvements. In economic development, while I'm not going to go through all of them, but there was 9 critical areas you actually approved to help in the economic development area. A couple of them I'll mention is you adopted the Downtown Area Development Plan. You also approved the North Beach Redevelopment Initiative, and you approved the 5-year service agreement for business development services at the International Airport. So those are some of the recaps of what transpired during the month of March. I wanted to give you, Council, as well as the citizens, an update as it relates to the Lockbox breach with Frost Bank. Frost Bank has identified 868 customers who were affected by the recent breach of the City of Corpus Christi's Lockbox site. So Frost Bank plans to mail a letter to the affected customers and explain to them what happened. So if you receive a letter, you are one of the 868 customers. In this letter, they explain what happened, and they offer a couple of things. One is a 1 year of identity theft protection, and secondly, they will pay for any remediation services resulting from that breach. Again, that is just the latest update from Frost Bank as it relates to that Lockbox breach. The next area I wanted to mention, and I'm almost finished, the next area is in reference to development services. I know, Council, from time to time, you receive, you as well as myself and others receive complaints about development services, and we are actually working on a lot of those concerns. But I think it's important to also recognize the department. I want to begin to start taking the time to recognize these departments, because while complaints are coming, they are still doing great things. You happen to hear today the general manager from Port Royal talk about some of the things that Development Services has done to help them. This is one of those buildings that was tied to the Hurricane Harvey. I wanted to take the time to acknowledge, and I know that we have some Development Services staff members here today. I really would like to allow them to stand and be recognized, because they're doing a tremendous amount of work behind the scene, and they're going way beyond the call of duty to work with the companies and the businesses to be able to help them get back on their feet as it relates to their buildings. And while they keep safety at the forefront, they're still doing a lot of great things. I mean, when I'm calling them at 8:30 and 9 o'clock at night, and they're still working with these businesses to try to help them, that's tremendous. And I think it's important for the citizens to know that while you might hear some negativity, but there are some good things that's going on. So I would like for all of the development services staff that's present here today, could you please stand and be recognized? Thank you so much. And Mayor, I have one last item, and I just need to come down to deal with that.
All right.
Okay, I need Johnny Garcia, as well as the director, if you could both come and join me. So Johnny Garcia is one of our solid waste employees. If we can bring him. How you doing, Johnny?
It's not dangerous.
Okay, so Johnny has won a national award. So Johnny is a foreman. He received a national recognition from Lytx, which is a DriveCam program. Johnny was named the Government Division First Place Coach of the Year during a conference held in San Diego, California. The DriveCam program uses video cameras to record driving habits and coach drivers to adjust to road conditions and incidents that occur on their routes. Solid Waste Services has used Lytx DriveCam program for 3 years. It improves safety and reduces preventable city vehicle accidents. I wanted Mayor and Council for you as well as the citizens to know and recognize Johnny Garcia having won this national award. So congratulations. He doesn't want to say anything. We would like to take a quick picture if that's okay, but congratulations, Johnny.
Congratulations.